Well, the general topic is the privatization of public higher education across the country. And I've had the privilege, since I retired last year, of being able to take a national look at that question. And Wisconsin is certainly part of a trend that's accelerating, I think, towards privatization. Not because anybody planned it that way, but it's the result of a kind of perfect storm of political and financial decisions that are being made both in the legislature and in the university that converge essentially to drive us more and more in the direction of private universities. And some people like that. But there are some reasons to think we'd be giving up some pretty important collective benefits if we let that trend go all the way to the end. Now let me be upfront right away about my own view here. I really am an unreconstructed liberal, and I believe that we get collective benefits from collective investments. Thank you. As you know, that view is not universally shared. And I think one of the challenges that we have now is to figure out how to operate in an environment where perhaps we have not been articulate enough about those collective benefits, and where others simply have different philosophical postures about whether collective investment in many things, but in higher education in particular, is still worth making. Privatization is a hot topic now, both nationally and internationally. The New York Times did an extended piece in the Sunday issue maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. The Boston Globe has done an extended series. The Denver Post has just done a piece. Lou Dobbs interviewed me for a piece that was on a couple of weeks ago. And so this issue is of current debate and discussion, not just here, but nationally and indeed internationally. Let me outline the argument of the book in a few short steps. This is giving you the punchline first, and that's what they tell speakers never to do, but nonetheless, I will do it. The general argument we're making in the book is that de facto privatization of higher education in the United States is well underway. I'll come back and talk about what I mean by that in a minute. Secondly, that universities are coping for survival and to try to protect their public missions, but managing to the market, which is what they are doing now, alters the university's goals, it alters their constituencies, and it alters their modes of operation in ways that should not surprise us when we think about it, but apparently do surprise some people. That little public dialogue that we've had about all of this so far means that we'll have uncoordinated outcomes as a result of this. The loss of some key public purposes that universities have pursued over the years, and overall, I think, a bleaker economic future for our country and for our state. I think we're fast approaching the point of no return on this trend. We need a serious public dialogue very soon that leads to a new model of what I might call the public purpose university. I think it's time for Wisconsin to recapture its heritage of innovation in social and political engines, and to begin to lead the way in redefining what a public purpose university might be and might look like in the 21st century. University people have to stop pining for the old days and trying to wish that the clock would roll back to 1960 or 1970. And elected officials and the public, I think, have to recognize that the things universities do to manage, or have to do to manage in the new environment, require some flexibility and some changes in those old values. We cannot continue to deliver all the public service instruction, low tuition, high quality, extensive research portfolio with the changing environment and the changing fiscal arrangements that are well advanced now. What drives privatization? And I believe it is not that somebody has made a careful calculation or developed a consensus political opinion that higher education is bad, or that we're doing something terribly wrong, or that we don't want our students to be educated. But rather it's a kind of perfect storm, a convergence of these political and fiscal conditions that are producing the privatization trends that we see. There's a kind of universities will survive attitude. You know, they're resilient, they're creative. Whatever we do to them, they'll manage it somehow. And if you're on the inside of that, if you're on the university end of that philosophy, of course, it feels a lot like success is being punished. But nonetheless, I think that attitude makes it easier for people to continue to cut higher education, cut the public investment in higher education, with, if not a clear conscience, at least a salving of the conscience. We're caught in this perfect storm with a series of shifting risks. The federal government in many spheres is looking for ways to shift risks, whether it's for health care or corrections or Social Security, downward to states, and states are shifting downward to local governments and to individuals. And that sifting of those responsibilities downward and risks is also contributing to the willingness, I think, of many people to say, well, we'll just let higher education privatize and fend for itself. Consequences of privatization, I think, are to shift the focus and the emphasis of the university from its subsidized mission, which is instruction and public service, to the self-supporting functions of the university, which are research, athletics, and education, economic development services for business.
We've heard what's wrong with state government, and we can see by the track record that you and your successors have not done well with either Governor Thompson or Governor Doyle or this legislature. But somehow there's kind of an assumption that the private sector is somehow better. And what is missing, it seems to me, from your presentation is what are the dangers of this privatization in terms of curriculum, admission, all the other things that we see in the private sector every time we pick up the newspaper.
Yeah, you're right, Ed. As you go farther down that spectrum towards privatization, you become more and more dependent on serving them what pay. And that means your curriculum tilts more and more towards occupational and professional programs and less to general education and liberal education. Some of us worry a lot about that. We should worry a lot about that if we don't, I think. I think we're going to wake up one day and say, wait a minute, how did we get in the mess we're in? Nobody realized that we were actually pursuing a path here that was going to lead us to privatization. I think we're approaching the point of no return. You may know that Madison now gets only about 18% of its budget from the state. Next year, I think that's going to be closer to 15%. There comes a point, and I don't know whether it's 15 or 12 or 10, but there certainly comes a point at which the university has to operate differently in response to the constituencies that are paying the bill, the other 80%, the other 82 or 85%. And that's simply good business sense. That's simply good practice. But we can protect, we can keep our public purpose intact if we can reach some agreements, I think, at this point, public and private together, about how to meet the state's needs. If we do nothing, and that's certainly the easier path, we will be privatized within a very few years in this state. And it's hard for me to see, if that happens, how we ever come back from that. I think it's a one-way street.